All right, a lot of vaccine talk in the news. You know about last week, Pfizer, and now this week, Moderna. So that's being shipped out. We'll have shipments today here in the area. Dr. Dean Finelli, one of the best in the business in talking about this, partner in the intellectual property department of Safe Offshore in the nation's capital. 20 years plus regarding the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries. And a regular in the media, you could hear Dr. Finelli talking about the COVID-19, the FDA, test trials, vaccines, so much more. And nice enough to give us a couple of minutes here on a Monday morning. Dr. Finelli, great to have you as always.
Thank you for having me.
We know about last Monday and Pfizer, and you know what? It's all about trying to get the medicine to the needy right now. We need it. And your take on things on Operation Warp Speed, and it is with this second dose now coming from Moderna, Inc.
Yeah, so Operation Warp Speed, at least in my opinion, has been a complete success. I mean, it's really unprecedented to get a single vaccine advanced this quickly, much less two, and we're going to need them. I mean, there's 4 more that the U.S. is banking on through Operation Warp Speed, so hopefully they come through the pipeline quickly. It looks like 2 of those will be coming through January, February, and then the other 2 later in the year. But right now, as you mentioned, Pfizer and Moderna are both out. Moderna will be will be vaccinated in people today, so that's certainly good news.
A lot of people want to know, Doctor, the difference. What's the difference between Moderna's vaccine and Pfizer's that went out last week? What's the main difference there?
Yeah, they're very similar, both mRNA vaccines, both have never been made or vaccinated before in people, so for all intents and purposes, people should consider them very equal. You can't mix them. If you get the Pfizer shot first, you have to get the Pfizer shot for the second shot and vice versa. There are some very minor differences. It looks like in the Moderna vaccine, people experience fatigue and fever a little higher, but not in anything that should concern people. Both of these companies said they could have about 20 million doses out very shortly, so that's certainly good news. But there's really people, when they get this, they shouldn't think that there's any major differences, because for all intents and purposes, as I mentioned, they're very, very similar. And the side effects are also similar.
Very similar. Is it still a 3-week interim period between first and second shots? Is that kind of the timeline there for both?
So Pfizer's 3 weeks and Moderna is 4 weeks. Another main difference that people have heard is the temperature storage. Pfizer has to be stored at minus 94 Fahrenheit, Moderna minus 4. So it could be the situation where you see the Pfizer vaccine rolled out in urban centers where they have the availability of those cold storage units, whereas the Moderna may not need those, so they can roll them out in more rural communities. But again, as far as the effectiveness and safety goes, very similar.
All right, allergenic reactions. We've heard a few here. Is that kind of a common practice when you roll these things out?
Yeah, it shouldn't surprise people. And, doctors and technicians and nurses that are administering this, they have the EpiPen available. They have medication available, Benadryl, et cetera, to treat these conditions. This is not surprising. The whole point of the vaccine is to stimulate the immune system in a very, very, very small percentage of people. They could have an overreaction, and the immune system can be overstimulated. So that can occur. But I would definitely tell people there's a lot of misinformation out there about, side effects and causes. Go to the FDA website. That's where you're going to get the real information. I mean, even on the news, I've heard things that are just completely wrong, frankly. So it's very important to people to think that, people still are going to get diseases. Things are going to happen. People in their normal course of lives experience, sickness and illness, and not everything is attributable to the vaccine. So we have to keep that in perspective. Scientists will look at if a side effect is attributable to the vaccine. So people shouldn't just think, there's news about Bell's palsy. There's news about, infertility in women, and none of it has been proven. So there's a lot of misinformation that people should track down and look at the FDA website.
As always, no question about it, Dr. Dean Finelli, and the vaccine. So if you get a reaction, an allergy type reaction after shot number 1, is it automatic in one's thinking to go for the second shot? Do you hold off? What do you do if you have a bad reaction?
Yeah, if you have a bad reaction, you're probably not going to get that second shot. I mean, it'll depend on the severity of the reaction, but, certainly if you're thinking of a situation where, you had to be administered Benadryl, you had to have, you had an anaphylactoid type reaction, then you definitely would not get that second shot. But some of the minor adverse effects like pain, fever, fatigue, those certainly you could go back and get. That's the body's immune system. That's the immune response. That's a good thing. So certainly you can get the second shot after that.
There you go. Hospital workers, the first responders. In your opinion, who's up next? We've heard 75 plus. Nursing home, obviously, that's been a focal point here. It's, minority neighborhoods. To me, that's very important because we know how hard hit they were, but they pretty much are top 4 or 5, correct?
That's right. Absolutely right. So the prioritization that was set out by the CDC is completely risk-based, and you hit it right on the head. People over 65, over 75 are high risk. People in nursing home, that makes up about 40% of the deaths that we've seen so far attributed to the virus. So definitely, and healthcare workers, they're on the front line. So that prioritization is entirely risk-based, and I think the way they're rolling it out is, in my opinion, the correct way.
All right. A lot of people wondering, okay, when will it be my turn? Now, listen, I put out a date the other day. The long date to me probably would be summer 2021. It could be sooner, but, until you go to your CVS, your Walgreens to line up, probably, realistically, you got to think, summer. I mean, is that realistic, summer 2021?
Yeah, that's realistic. I'm thinking, sometimes Q2. So, yeah, end of spring, beginning of summer is not out of the ballpark, depending on how quickly this is rolled out and just as importantly, how quickly additional vaccines are approved. So that's not unrealistic. Summer, hopefully by the end of summer, fall, we're getting back to our normal lives, but, that's not unrealistic for the general public.
Doctor, what about this second strain that broke over the weekend? A lot of people are saying, oh, no, here we go again. Governor reacting in a way in which we should be a little more stringent after we're hearing what's going on with the UK, could hit here. What do you know about the second strain of COVID?
Yeah, certainly that's concerning. When you think about the new variant of the virus and you think about the vaccines that are being developed, the vaccines target that spike protein, as everyone's been hearing, and the spike protein is pretty critical. So hopefully that portion of the virus won't mutate, or at least to an extent that the vaccine doesn't work in the future. But at this point, it looks like the vaccines still will target all the variants, this new variant in the UK. I've heard that we should know by the end of this week whether or not the vaccine will be effective against that. And my gut is that it will be, but certainly it's allowing the virus to be transmitted more easily. So it's definitely concerning.
From everything I'm hearing, they're saying, you know what, don't be alarmed. This is a vaccine that's out now that can handle any type of strain, although it still remains to be seen, in my opinion. But they are certainly quelling the fears, what people would actually think when they hear this type of stuff, correct?
Correct, and that's the right way to approach this. The immune system's just incredible the way it functions, these antibodies and T cells that target the virus. It's not really a one-and-done situation. You have one virus, one antibody. These antibodies they're smart. They can develop means to attack new variants. So just because, people hear mutation, they think, HIV, that's mutates, that's why we don't have a virus. That's not really the way it works. Just because all viruses will mutate, and just because this virus mutates, it does not mean the vaccine doesn't work. So at least for now, I think that's the right message to just let people know that viruses do mutate, and the vaccine has been effective. It has mutated hundreds of times already, and the current vaccine is effective against all those variants. So just because we're hearing of mutation doesn't necessarily mean the vaccine won't work.
All right. Two more for you. We're seeing the surge in and around our country right now. The numbers are off the charts. 250,000 cases over the weekend. I mean, it's just crazy. The amount of deaths, to go over 3,500 now in a given day is astronomical. Why the surge? Why the numbers right now? Is it holiday time? Is it gatherings? Are we seeing the after effects, the 2-3 weeks period of in betwixt in between? Thus, what you're seeing in reality right now, And also, two-part of there, do we see the same thing after Christmas into New Year's as well? We're going to see these numbers through February. What's the explanation, you think?
I think it's a combination of all those things. And yes, it was the gatherings around Thanksgiving, and now we're seeing that roll out. It's the gatherings with people, and, that's why we're seeing a lot of these cities go back to lockdowns. And unfortunately, we saw this weekend there was the highest travel at airports since the beginning of the pandemic. So it looks like people are traveling. They're still going to go to see family during the holidays. And, look, I'm not here to say don't see your family because, it's Christmas. The holidays are here. But, we have to just remember, protect yourself, wear a mask, even if it's family, if it's someone that you haven't been in contact with. It's hard to tell people not to travel, but I think that is the reason why we're seeing this surge. And, if you're going to travel, just even if it's family, wear that mask because really that's the only means of protection at this point.
Finally, herd immunity. We've heard all kinds of crazy numbers. It's 70% that would need to get inoculated to reach herd immunity. I've heard as low as 30%. I've heard the verbiage natural immunity to kind of be out there in a given time. Where are we at as far as herd is concerned, the numbers and everything else? Where do you see this leveling off at a certain point?
Yeah, so we're probably not going to see this. I mean, we're going to need to have over 70%. That's clear. I haven't seen the 30% number, but that's way too low. We're going to need over 70% of the population to have immunity, natural immunity, getting immunity by experiencing the virus, overcoming it, and then having that natural immunity. That is not a means to achieve herd immunity. I mean, you'd be talking millions of deaths to get to that way. The vaccination is the only way possible to get to herd immunity without that huge number of deaths. And we're probably looking at some point, like you said earlier, around summertime before we're in that area of herd immunity. But we will start seeing some of the positive effects of the vaccine because if you think about it, they're targeting the most vulnerable, people that are in nursing homes, the healthcare workers, people in communities that are higher risk. So by doing that and targeting them first, we should see the number go down. But as far as achieving herd immunity, realistically, we're several months away from that.
Dr. Dean Fanelli, partner in the Intellectual Property Department of Safeguard Shore in Washington, D.C. And can't thank you enough. Vital stuff. And we'll keep an eye on things, Doctor. Until next time, appreciate a few here.
My